Japan is the best place in the world to shop for menswear right now. Today, I'm going to tell you why, go into depth about 3 types of shops you can go into to find these deals, and which one you should choose depending on what you're looking for. Let's do this. Hello friends, my name is Corey, aka The Recovering Banana. I am an Asian Canadian living in London. My interest in fashion and in menswear really grew when I studied in France years ago, and I was a part of the luxury club. And now I spend a lot of my free time looking for deals on menswear. I just came back from a trip to Japan and I shopped a lot. I've been interested in the Japanese fashion scene for a while and have been hoping to check it out. Some of the brands I came home with included Beams, United Arrows, North Face Purple Label, and Kapital. This is by no means a comprehensive list, but more of a guide based off of my own personal experience. It's hard to argue that inflation has made so many things more expensive, but luckily for most tourists, the currency exchange has never been better. Last year, the yen hit a 38-year low against the American dollar. Furthermore, Japan is one of the countries that allow for tax-free shopping, which means that most tourists can take 10% off the listed price of most things. Add on the fact that Japan has one of the coolest, most innovative fashion scenes in the world right now, and there are a lot of really good reasons for you to go and shop in Japan. So on my trip, I visited 3 types of shops when looking for menswear deals. This included outlet malls, curated vintage shops, and the more traditional thrift shop. You won't find the latest fashion at any of these, but you'll find some very high quality pieces no matter if they're new or pre-loved. Let's go through each one by one. Let's start with outlet shops. I think most of you will know what these are. These are the places where brands send all the clothing they can't sell from seasons past. Many brands also sell specially made, lower price, and generally lower quality sub-brands at their outlet stores as well. I went to the Mitsui outlet park in Yokohama, which was pretty easy to get to from Tokyo. If you're already in Yokohama, even better. Japanese brands there included Beams, United Arrows, Healthknit, Asics, Seiko, and Montbell. They also had some major Western brands like Adidas, On Running, and Nike. I really like the United Arrows store. I think there were pieces across the United Arrows sub-brands like Beauty and Youth. This also meant the prices ranged from very inexpensive to very expensive. I bought this cardigan for around 12,000 yen or around 60 pounds. The Beam store was where I spent the most money, although I think the experience was only okay. My biggest gripe with the Beams outlet is that the vast majority of their stock was from the Beams Heart line, which is kind of their more affordable sub-label. And I think the quality's generally not as good, and it's a bit more kind of young. However, I think the one really cool thing about the Beam store was there was this one discount rack in the front, one for men and one for women's, and everything on there was around 30% to 70% off. Sizing will be an issue for some of people, but if you're looking for some special collaborations or anything like that, that will be a really good place to look. I found this Beams Heart times Kangol long sleeve t-shirt for 2,000 yen, and this Beams times Gramici times Towan, I think I'm pronouncing that right, jacket for 11,000 yen. Both I think were quite affordable for what you're getting, and definitely were on a big discount already. One of my friends went to Montbell and got a jacket. There were some great discounts, I think 50 to 70% off some of the jackets, some of the sweaters, some of the boots and that sort of thing. So if you're into kind of outerwear, ski wear, might be worth checking out. Another friend of mine went to Healthknit. They had these really cool kind of almost gym inspired clothing that seems to be very popular right now. Very good for basics. So if you're looking for kind of heavy knit t-shirts or kind of cardigans and that sort of thing, also could be another place to look. To be honest, I think the Western brands were a bit disappointing. The brands like Adidas, Nike, On Running, those kind of sports brands. I've definitely seen better versions of these outlet shops in places like France, the UK, America, Canada, even Taipei. One of the things that I think that this mall didn't have was luxury goods. So if that's what you're looking for, also worth going elsewhere. I think there's another outlet mall near Mount Fuji called Gotemba. I'll link in the description, but definitely I think that one would be a better one to look if you're looking for brands like Gucci, Saint Laurent, Issey Miyake, that sort of thing. So let's move on to pre-owned clothing then. For this segment, I've separated into 2 different pieces. One is all around curated vintage, and the other one's more around kind of your traditional thrift shops. How I kind of define the difference here is that curated vintage are more specialized, they're going after certain aesthetics. Sometimes the price point isn't actually that much cheaper than new goods. Whereas your pre-owned thrift shops are the ones that are kind of more scattered. They kind of carry a bit of everything and probably a better place to look if you're looking purely for deals. One thing I should note about buying pre-owned goods in Japan is that the general quality of them, I would say, just significantly higher than most of the other places I've shopped for kind of vintage goods. This is a lot because of this principle they have of cherishing your belongings. So most people just take a lot of care in their own goods. So when they sell them, they're still in very high quality. Also, fakes and that sort of thing are not something that you have to worry about in Japan. So with pre-owned clothing, let's start with curated vintage. And when you talk about secondhand goods in Japan, Tokyo specifically, the one place you're going to hear about a lot is Shimokitazawa. This is kind of like the mecca of secondhand goods. There's just blocks upon blocks of vintage shops, and for menswear, it's a really good place to look. If you're a fan of the city boy aesthetic, which is kind of this Japanese Americana look coined by this magazine Popeyes, this is, again, the place to look for that. Some of the shops will specialize specifically in that, and the prices range from very, very low to very, very high. And the Japanese Americana look, I would say, is characterized by things like old school Levi's and old school Carhartt, that sort of thing. You'll also just see goods shipped from America, no name brands, that sort of thing that just have that look. So again, if you're after the city boy aesthetic, this is the place to look. One really cool curated vintage shop that I can recommend is called Regla Megla. So if you're looking for that specific city boy aesthetic, this is the place to go. If you are looking for higher end vintage shops, you can find a lot of those closer to the center of the city. So Ginza or Shibuya. Some of these are by appointment only, so definitely look into that, but I'll link a couple articles for you to read if you are interested in that. Now that's curated vintage. What I want to talk about now is my favorite find of the trip, which are thrift shops in the outskirts of cities. I'll just say this now, if you're purely looking for the best price and you don't really care about the shopping experience or anything like that, this is where you want to look. One shop that I can recommend, and I highly recommend it, is the Book Off Super Bazaar. So some of you who know about Japan or have been to Japan will probably have seen Book Offs around. These are just a really popular chain of used bookstores, and in the city they have things like Book Off Plus, which also sells toys and computers and some clothing and that sort of thing. On the outskirts of cities, they have these things called super bazaars, which is essentially just the everything Book Off store, and they are amazing. A quick Google or a YouTube search of the Book Off Super Bazaar, and you'll find a ton of videos and resources about people going to Book Off Super Bazaars, and you'll really see how cheap things actually are. And this includes everything from kind of very low-end brands to very high-end brands like Louis Vuitton and Supreme. Originally, my friends and I were only going to go to one Book Off Super Bazaar, but after going to one, we thought it was so amazing that we had to find another one. So the two we went to were one in Kawasaki and one in Omori. The super bazaars that we went to had racks of United Arrows and beams for very low prices. I bought this corduroy beams jacket for around 7,000 yen or about 35 pounds. I also found this North Face purple label backpack for 65,000 yen or around 33 pounds. They also had things like Porter Yoshida bags and Supreme bags and that sort of thing. Do you remember the cardigan that I bought, the United Arrows one, that I bought for 12,000 yen? My friend found the exact same one in his size in a slightly different color for 2,000 yen. So he saved a lot of money by buying it secondhand. Being a general thrift shop, you really had to dig to find the good deals, but all my friends and I found something that we absolutely loved. The one brand that I was looking for all over Japan was Kapital. It's a denim brand. I found this long denim coat from Kapital for 75 pounds or around 15,000 yen. My friend found a North Face purple label patchwork shirt for 12,000 yen. And my other friend found a pair of unworn made in Italy dress shoes for around the same price. I will say in general that the Kawasaki location had better deals than the Omori one. My hypothesis is that it's because the Kawasaki one's a bit further away from Tokyo, but you have to consider that I'm talking about a sample size of 2, so it could have just been my luck as well. But if you had a choice, maybe shoot to go to one that's a little bit further out from the city. So to wrap up, I think depending on what you're looking for, there's reasons to go to either outlet malls, curated vintage shops, or to these more generalized thrift shops. If the thought of wearing pre-owned clothing grosses you out, then the outlets could be a really good place to go. I think outlet prices in Japan are pretty comparable to outlet prices in other countries, but you will find more Japanese brands at better prices there. So if you're into Japanese fashion, outlets are a good place to look. If you're looking for vintage and wanted something very specific or going after a, for example, city boy style or a different aesthetic, then curated vintage shops are really good for that. If you're looking for something from an older collection that you can't find new anymore, again, curated vintage is probably the place to go. I find that the people there are generally very knowledgeable about what they're selling, and everything, again, is very curated. But if you're purely looking for deals, go to the giant thrift shops. Go find a Book Off Super Bazaar. It's worth the trip out of the city just to go to that, and you'll find some unbelievable prices. The last point I want to make is that don't discount just shopping regularly as well. So going to a regular shop. I bought a MacBook Air, and after all the tax discounts and the currency exchange, I saved around £400 compared to what I would have paid in London. My friend bought a pair of Issey Miyake Homme Plissé pleated trousers, and it was half the price of what you would have paid for one new. You know, I bought one on sale, and he got his for way cheaper than what I got mine for. So just regular shopping in Japan could be very, very good as well. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate a like to this video and a subscription to my channel. I'm going to be posting a lot more regularly on this channel about the Asian abroad experience.